Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining with us for our webinar, Plugin Graph Analytics on PostgreSQL with Apache AGE. My name is Jaden, and I would like to guide you through during our session today. And today we have with us Eya Badal, who is the chair of Apache AGE Project Management Committee, and she's been working on the project over the past 4 years. Hi, Eya. Thank you for joining in with us today. How are you?
Good. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining.
Great. Thank you so much, Eya. Great to have you here. And let me also introduce Ibar Ahmed, who is a principal engineer and consultant of PostgreSQL. He has a wealth of background in software technologies, from software design to embedded development, and of course, open source development, primarily in PostgreSQL. With his thought leadership, he's recently been nominated as one of the 100 most influential in the database community. Hi, Ibar. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, everybody. So I'm really happy to present in front of you. So we will learn something about PostgreSQL together. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ibra. And then last but not least, we also have Umar Hayat here with us, who is a lead product developer at AgeDB. Hi, Umar.
Hi, everyone. And thank you for joining. So yeah, hopefully this would be a bit
great to have you here, Umar.
session for you. Yeah.
So today with our great speakers, we are going to cover 3 big points, starting with Eya on Apache AGE and its graph technologies capabilities, Ibra on PostgreSQL, its variety of extensions, and its integration with AGE. And then finally, with Umar, we would like to introduce all of you to our latest product, AGEDB Enterprise, encompassing all topics discussed today. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Eya to get right into it, to Apache AGE.
Thank you everyone again for joining us. Hopefully, as Umar and Ibrar mentioned, this will be a knowledgeable session and you'll learn something at the end of this session. So yeah, to get started, I thought it's a good idea to maybe start a little bit with the concept of graph databases. Most of you may already be familiar with the concept, but to give you a really high-level overview of graph databases, graph database is a specified type of specialized type of database designed to store and manage data as interconnected nodes and edges. So meaning that some of the key components when it comes to the graph databases are edges and nodes. As you may already know, in our traditional and legacy databases, relational databases, everything is in the format of tables. But when it comes to graph, the main components, as I mentioned, are nodes and edges. So nodes, they represent entities. For example, it can be people, product, locations. When it comes to edges, they represent relationship between those nodes. The relationship can be friendship, can be purchases, can be connections, or any type of relationship. So for example, as you can see in this graph, node, which is the representation of entities, can be a person, right? Can be Sarah. And then Sarah can, can be friend with another person, which is, let's say, Mary. So simple concept, but again, everything comes down to nodes and edges instead of tables. Some of the key features when it comes to graph databases are they are very efficient for querying complex relationship. So in today's world, everything is connected. And that's why using graph databases in those complex and connected relationship is very efficient. They are very ideal for the data with many connections. They are already also used in applications like social networks, recommendation system, and fraud detection. Give me 1 second, something popped up here. Okay. Some of the benefits of graph databases, they are really flexible when it comes to data modeling, very powerful for pattern matching and traversing, and also scalable for handling large and evolving data sets. As you may already know, some of the popular graph databases out there can be Amazon Neptune, Neo4j, AgensGraph, AGE, Apache AGE, and AGEDB Enterprise. In the next slide, I thought it's also important to share that one of the fastest growing databases nowadays are graph databases, as also Gartner predicts that by 2025, graph technologies will be used in 80% of data and analytics innovations. And as you may see in this graph here, this is a database popularity trend. And this green line here that increasing is for graph DBMS. So you can see that since 2013 and later, it's been increasing. The popularity is increasing a lot. So I think it's important to learn more about graph databases and see what solutions and what needs they can solve out there. And now let's a little bit talk more about Apache AGE. So the main goal of Apache AGE is to provide graph data processing and analytic capability to all the relational databases. Apache AGE is an extension of Postgres, so it's built on top of Postgres, and it counts as one of the extensions. So you can go and enable it on Postgres and start using it. As an extension, Apache AGE leverages the user's investment in Postgres without locking you as a user to a specific version or fork of Postgres. Also, Apache AGE integrates the open cipher graph modeling language, eccentric database representation, and graph processing into PostgreSQL. Also, at the same time, Apache AGE, it allows the mixing of SQL and open cipher queries, which enables the user to quickly share data between the traditional databases and the graph databases. So we'll talk a little bit more about this feature we call the hybrid query. So where, again, you can write SQL and cipher query at the same time and basically fetch your data from the different models at the same time. In the next slide, let's take a look at the Apache AGE core features, some of the very key features, important key features. So as we said, graph database plugin, it's a graph database plugin, or also you can call it extension for the PostgreSQL. So again, think about it as a plugin. You go and enable it, and you can easily gain access to query and visualize graph data in PostgreSQL compatible relational database. Another key feature of Apache AGE is hybrid queries. As we talked about a little bit, where you can, as I mentioned, let's say you have two models, right? You have relational model and in Postgres, and then you have some graph model using AGE. So by using AGE, you have the capability of writing a hybrid query and just query your models at the same time. So it will give you a great flexibility when it's come to being a multi-model, and you can simply use this feature at the same time. Another key feature is the fast graph query processing. So you can achieve both fast indexing and efficient query processing. At the same time, Apache AGE, it does offer visualization tool. We call it AGE Viewer, which provide visualization of graph and also relational data. So using this viewer, you can visualize your data in both formats. So if you have relational data, you will see it in a table format. And if you have a graph model, you will see and visualize it in the format of edges and node, and you can see the connection and all the relationship through that viewer. So it will give you a bit more visibility and analytics, if you would say, feature. In the next slide, what you are looking at is the Apache AGE architecture. Very high level, we're gonna go over it as an overview. So since it's built on top of Postgres, you see the Postgres storage at the bottom of this architecture. It's using the same storage. We do have different layers here. We have a query parsing layer, which processes Cypher queries by a function call that uses a parser following the open Cypher specification. In the next layer, we do have the query transform, which transforms a Cypher query into a query tree that will be attached as a subquery node. Then in our next layer, we have a planner optimizer, which understands some graph operation and produces plan nodes that are related to the graph operation. And in the next one, we have the executor, which executes plan nodes that are related to the graph operations. And in our last layer, transaction and cache layer, we do have Cypher queries that works with Postgres's existing fully transactional system, the ACID transactions. So yeah, high level overview of the architecture. If you have any questions, we would be happy to answer at the end of the session. And also, in our next slide, we do have some of the benefits of using Apache AGE and some of the benefit that it comes by basically using it. So it's a obviously mature foundation, all right? So because it's built on top of Postgres, you will get benefit as a user from decades of development, reliability, and performance improvement. So you do have the support of Postgres SQL community as well. Also, we do get the great support because Apache AGE is part of the Apache Software Foundation. And we do have an active community working on this project. And obviously being part of this foundation, it will guarantee the continuous development, peer reviews, and shared best practices. So as many of you may know, Apache AGE is a top-level project within the Apache Software Foundation. We've been through the 2 years of incubation, going before we became a top level, where we followed all the standard policy and, you know, all the, again, the standards that aligns with this foundation. So everything needs to meet all these standards. We go through the different peer reviews, we go through the different votes when we do releases. So again, being part of both these communities, it's guarantee of more reliability and more quality. Also, another benefit is the flexibility. So Apache AGE integrates the capabilities of both relational and the graph databases, enabling more integrate data interrelationships and analytics without the need for separate systems. So it is important. And I think it's one of the benefits that you do not need any separate system. When it comes to AGE, you can use multi-model feature without any cost, without any, again, additional work, or in some cases, even it comes to some network latencies and everything. So considering all that, this flexibility is very beneficial in Apache AGE. And also interoperability, AGE support for Cypher language and also SQL in Postgres means that it can be integrated into existing tools and workflow with minimal friction, minimum effort. So again, comes back to flexibility and making it easy for you as a user to use Apache AGE. So yeah, that was my part. Thank you everyone for listening. I will pass it to Ibar.
Welcome guys. Actually, you can see my screen. Actually, when we are start talking about the databases and graph databases, it's really important to see which is we are using the database, the core engine. And in this case, in the AgeDB, the core engine is the PostgreSQL. So why PostgreSQL? PostgreSQL is the ranked since many years about the database of the year award in the DB engine. So it's a well-known community, it's very robust and has a basically built on ANSI SQL. So mostly you can see that the things are based on this standard. So that's very important. So that's what I was told, that interoperability, when we are talking about that, then it's really important to stick with the standards, and PostgreSQL is doing the same. So PostgreSQL, and usually it's called Postgres. So and sometimes people call it it's a PostgreSQL. It's not PostgreSQL, it's not PostgreDB, it's PostgreSQL or Postgres. That's the two names you have to pronounce in that. And they told that it's a renowned database actually, because of its extensibility and stability. And you have to keep in your mind that when I'm talking about the extensibility, that's what AgeDB had exploited, that feature, extensibility. So we will discuss that later, how we have achieved that in AgeDB. And when this developed, actually it's a PostgreSQL old database lies in 80s, but now is capturing the latest technology and adding feature on that. And why they can do that? Because it has a very good global community. And PostgreSQL is not owned by any company. It's a global community project, and it will be community project for rest of its end of life. Maybe it's not, but so developers are working on this community. If they are not hired by the PostgreSQL, but the companies are paying to the people to work on the PostgreSQL. So that's really important for you. If you are a developer or engineer or something like that, it's really important that you should work on PostgreSQL to enhance it and make your I can see the CV and something, your knowledge, so you can improve by working on the PostgreSQL. So next. So when we are talking about the PostgreSQL, it's really important to understand what PostgreSQL architecture is. It has very complex architecture, but I try to manage the whole main component in just one screen. So whenever you can see the screen, you can see at least the global picture of PostgreSQL. And here you can see that the PostgreSQL user, like you are the client, and PostgreSQL has a process that's called a postmaster. And whenever you connect to the PostgreSQL, you connect to the postmaster, and that postmaster create other processes for the that user and give that Postgres process to that user, and postmaster will be free. So you are communicating with the PostgreSQL. You initially connect postmaster, and then you start communicating with PostgreSQL. And then you have some memory areas. In memory areas, you can configure shared buffer. I'm not talking about what's shared buffer, wall buffer, commit log. You have to learn it. It's just for you to learn and understand what these are and what these are used for. And that's a memory configuration parameter for PostgreSQL. And when you start PostgreSQL, it starts postmaster, and then these processes, the archiver process, the logging collector, auto vacuum, wall writer, BG writer, checkpointer, stack collector. So when you start PostgreSQL, these all processes start at the background. But the most important process is for you, actually, the postmaster, and then it spawns the Postgres process, because the PostgreSQL is a multi-process model. So when you connect to the one PostgreSQL, it will create another process and give access to that process to you. And then the main part is the storage, because when we are talking about the database is actually the main storage and the application or the usage of that data. So when data, there is a PG data directory called in PostgreSQL, where all the data stores in term of files actually. So every table, every index has its own file in the PG data directory. So when you store rows, you store something, the nodes, any information, it will go to that particular file. So then the wall actually, it's a complex topic, so it doesn't have any time to discuss that. But keep in mind, you have to serialize your data. When there are multi-processes are writing to the one database, then you have to serialize this information. And how you serialize that information? That information goes to the wall first. So, and then wall, put that information in sequence. So it's not happen somebody put delete on table and somebody insert. So it must be invoke first information first. Like if delete come first, then it has to delete. If insert come first, then it has to insert first. If multi-processes are doing, so if there is no serializer in between, then it happens that it jumble up the sequence of the queries. So that's really important. And wall is doing that. And it's not only feature of wall, it has the crash recovery and a lot of feature of that. So we are not talking about that. So then we have logs. So when we are talking about the characteristics, actually it's basically the database characteristics, but PostgreSQL is based on the standards. So it has that kind of a feature. So we will discuss that in that regard. So data redundancy control. So how you control your data redundancy. You store your data in one place, in centralized space, like in database, you store your information in a one place and everybody can access it. So that controls the redundancy. You don't have to store your information on your own computer and then access to that. So it has many examples on that, but as a basic example. So data integrity, ensure that the data stored in database is accurate and consistent. Consistency is really important. And if data is not consistent, then there is no use of data. So accurate and consistent, that's also important, because if you are storing data, you have to be sure that data is accurate, and database is ensuring that information. Data security, definitely when you store some data, you need some kind of security. So who can access what and who can not access, and who can log in, who cannot log in. So that you have to control. And PostgreSQL provide different ways of data security, like username and password. You have to log into the database, you need to provide the username and the password. That's one level of security. Then it provides you the secure connection, like in transit, it will provide you the SSL connection. So that's security, that nobody can in between your network can snatch your data, and that's provided. And somehow they also provide the security on the disk. So there are tools available, so you can get that. And there is a one specialized extension that is called a PG crypto. So you can crypt your data and you can decrypt your data on the fly. So data independent changes in database structure do not affect the application program, and that's really important. When you store your data in your some kind of application and you write some code in that, so whenever you change the structure of data, you need to change your application. But in data, you can have a multi-ways to your independent write your independent application. It's a two-way. One way you change the structure, but you can create a views or something like that. Your application will be the same, and it doesn't affect the application. And another data independence, like when you store data and the data support the standard query languages. So that's, again, keep in mind, we will discuss that in next slide. When you are talking about the standard, then your application can connect to other database. Like if a SQL, like you can say that MySQL is based on the ANSI SQL, and PostgreSQL based on ANSI SQL. So whenever you have a data in PostgreSQL and you have to port that data to MySQL, your application can connect. Just you have to change your connection criteria and that, but the structure will be same. The query language will be the same. So that's the power of standardization, and PostgreSQL provide that. It's based on the ANSI SQL. Data abstraction offer a logical view of data abstraction, the physical storage layer. So you don't have to go to the storage layer of PostgreSQL to access the data. It has a different query languages, logical views, and everything PostgreSQL provide for that. Concurrency control, as I discussed, that multiple user can access the data, and that can cause problem about the concurrency. And PostgreSQL provide a very good view of concurrency control with the MVCC and snapshots. So you have to learn these kind of things. So how PostgreSQL control the concurrency and the query processing, and that's the main part, the query processing. You have to process your query. There is a parser, analyzer, rewriter. The whole stuff is there to process your query. The planner, the projector. So you have all these features in PostgreSQL. So now I already discussed that the ANSI SQL query. So I 100%, 99% sure that you know the ANSI SQL. ANSI SQL is like, I give you the very rudimentary example, like select static from this, select like the basic SQL you're talking about. The standard is something, but when you are talking about that's the SQL. So you need a SQL standard in the PostgreSQL. You have that, but PostgreSQL, what doesn't have PostgreSQL? PostgreSQL doesn't have the cipher query. That's the problem. And if you want to add, and what is a cipher query? Cipher query is like to creating a graph, to creating a node, edges, and querying data from that, the match command. There are a lot of stuff there. So PostgreSQL does not support that. So for that, there are two ways of doing that, or maybe multiple ways of doing that. The first way is to change the PostgreSQL code, add your own parser into PostgreSQL, and somehow the Umar, our hero of that kind of a thing, so he will discuss some kind of the AgeDB has already did a project AgensSQL where they have changed the PostgreSQL to add the parser into PostgreSQL. But I'm not talking about right now here. I will talk something different about that. So hybrid query. Definitely, when you add some kind of a support in a database which already support the ANSI SQL, then if you add the support for the cipher, so you can run both queries. You can have a select static, you can have a match, you can create a graph, you can create a table. So that's the combinations you can do, always use that. So multiple graphs, definitely you can create, analyze, write a multiple complex queries about the graph. So hierarchical organization, graph level organization for structured data, enhanced data management and retrieval, because if you have a hierarchical structure of graph, something like that, so you can access a pattern. And you have the indexes. And another thing actually about the AgeDB is a full PostgreSQL backend. As I already discussed that when you are talking about the AgeDB, and that's an extension. I already discussed that that's an extension to PostgreSQL. And that AgeDB had exploited the feature of extensibility of PostgreSQL to create an extension for PostgreSQL to add this code. So you don't need to download a separate PostgreSQL for AgensSQL. You have to download the standard PostgreSQL, and then you can download the extension of PostgreSQL, and you are go. You can use the cipher, you can use the SQL. So Apache AGE as a PostgreSQL extension. So when we are talking about the PostgreSQL, so you can see that I write a very clear the pSQL. pSQL is the PostgreSQL client to connect to the PostgreSQL. So what I did, whenever you already installed PostgreSQL, you already install your Age extension. So that's the prerequisite of that. So you already installed that. So you have to create your extension. Extension is there. A standard post. This is a standard PostgreSQL. So you create extension Age, load that extension, load extension, and then everything is related to the Apache AGE is in a catalog. It's called AGE_catalog. So you can put that in priority. Otherwise, you have to write explicit query. So I just set that into the path first. So you can write the path. Oh, okay. So I already discussed with you that PostgreSQL doesn't have a cipher syntax, and that was the major problem for PostgreSQL Age extension. That was a problem because when you write an extension, you cannot write the cipher syntax. That was the problem. So we are running here the pSQL. So we did a select create graph name. And you see that this is select create graph. Create graph is a function and graph name is a name of the graph. You can see this is a SQL query. But with SQL query, we have to get Cipher work done. It's confusing. We are doing some Cipher stuff using the SQL command, using the function. And keep in mind, this is a problem for AGE, because when you are talking about that we are Cipher compatible. So why you are writing a SQL function for that? Because PostgreSQL does not support a parser extension, or you cannot change the parser in the extension. So you have to live with that. But we provided a solution, but just another tech point I will discuss later. So here you can see that select static from Cipher. You can see from here, select static from Cipher. It's and the graph name from that graph name is all about SQL. And in a dollar, you can see the create and that is a Cipher sentence. That again, the problem. We are stuck with the problem where we are creating stuff, but using SQL and put that Cipher command within the SQL to run it for you. And we'll go further. But it will create a graph. In Hanio, if that extension is not available, you can't create a graph. You can't query the graph. You can't work on that. So Apache AGE provide the way to write a SQL to create a graph. That's the beauty. The graph, the node and edges, everything you can create using the SQL. And that extension provided by Apache AGE. So what is this? If you know, this is AgeSQL. This is not a P-SQL. Apache AGE provide another client, which is the extension of P-SQL, where you can write a Cipher sentence. So you can see here, this is not a SQL, ANSI SQL. This is a Cipher. Create graph network, set path graph this, show graph, like select static from user. It's just selecting the user. But the create, you're creating the node, edges, everything. You have already create a network. You are now creating the node, edges. You can use that. So now what Apache AGE did, they provide you the core of the graph in an extension. So where you can write the node, edges, everything you can done with the graph using the extension, but you have a SQL syntax. And they also provide you a client where you can use the Cipher syntax. So you have the both options. If you are good in SQL, ANSI SQL, use graph and relation database system using the SQL. But if you are graph master and you want to write the queries in graph, just use this SQL client. So that's the beauty of actually what we have done here in Apache AGE. The similar, you can see that the use match to create an edge between the vertices, like match. That's all the Cipher syntax. So you can see that it's look like everything. It's 100%. You can just copy and paste from syntax from the any Cipher compatible database, and you can run it here. So you have all the use match class to query the graph, the querying the graph. So that's the beauty and the power of it. And I think I took enough time for our, and then I shifted to that our big guy who will elaborate what is the AgeDB enterprise. So he is the leader of the AgeDB. So just I am going to stop the share, and Umar Hayat is here.
Thank you, Ibar. So on the, as Ibar explained, so before me, Eya and Ibar explained the Apache AGE and how it is related to PostgreSQL. And now what's the next thing? So you have the graph extension, you have the graph database. I will explain what is the AgeDB enterprise, what is a solution, and I'll explain how it fit into different scenarios. So basically the PostgreSQL is the main engine, and which is the most important part. And from the graph side, which is Apache AGE. So what we did is we added few more features and few more tools. So to make a new enterprise solution, what we call AGEDB enterprise solution. So what that solution contain is this. So this is the package which AGEDB enterprise provide to fully utilize not only the graph as a simple feature, but as a solution as a whole. So it contains the main database engine with more features, which are few features related to security. It also provides the features for Oracle compatibility and also provide a lot of built-in packages so that you can use those packages and you don't need to develop your own packages. So on the graph side, it includes the AGE extension and for the application. So right now, if you see, most of the time when you use a database, normally the user for a database is not only the people, they are the application which communicate. Like for example, if you see Ibar and which Eya said, you can write the queries in the PSQL, but that's not always the case. Your database would be connected by some application, and that application would be using some drivers like what we in the data in PostgreSQL mainly we call them connectors, or you can call them drivers too. So in this enterprise AGEDB enterprise, we provide different connectors. Now you will see, like all these connectors, JDBC, ODBC, .NET, they are already available in PostgreSQL. So what extra is there, or it's just the main driver we provide as a standard open source one. So I will explain in the next few slides those things as well, what we added in there. And along with that, as a solution, you need more than these things. The main engine, the application side, you already cover. Then you also need high availability tools like pgpool or AHM, which is Agents High Availability Manager. And if you see different feature we provide for in this enterprise solution, you may want to migrate from the existing solution to this solution. So we also provide in this package different migration tools. And last, I will discuss what it means, how to integrate different things in one package. So if you see in the first slide, there is a security feature. So there are a lot built-in features inside the PostgreSQL itself. We added few more features which different enterprise users, they do need these features, like the password profiles, data redaction, and auditing. Few of the thing these features, they are also available partially or with a limited compatibility already in the open source world. But what we did is, we integrated fully inside the database core so that you can have a better experience, like the password profile, where different organization, they want to enforce different policies for different users for the password management and even the user management, when to lock a user, when to expire his password, and when to lock out different users. That's for the security of the, it controls the authentication and authorization. The other feature was data security is the data redaction, which is mainly for the, if you see in the security postures, we have different data confidentiality control. So what data redaction provide is data confidentiality control. So other than the existing PostgreSQL features like which are based on the permission or row level security, or you can create different views, then you can even encrypt them using different extensions like pgcrypto. What you can do is like mask the data. The data itself is not encrypted, but when you view it, it can be masked partially or as a whole. Like for example, if there is a social security number, you might want to mask the last part of the social security number, or maybe if there is a salary column, you might want to just blank that column for specific users. So you can create different data redaction policies for different tables. Similarly, another big feature is auditing. A lot of different compliance. They need a proper auditing mechanism. So what in AgeDB Enterprise DB provide is this auditing feature that you can control different object level or the session level auditing, and it quite a big feature inside. It provides you the flexibility to control everything which you want to edit, audit. So few of the things which are not, covered in this in the next slide, which is like Oracle compatibility. It's like providing the Oracle syntax as well as different data types which Oracle provide, which different conversion function which are not available in PostgreSQL, different like views, like in Oracle there are different DBA views, catalog views. We provide them as well. In PG, if you have the main feature which are missing, like creating packages like Oracle packages. So, and another one is PostgreSQL has the PG-SQL where you write is a procedural language. So similarly, we provide in this DB engine, you can create your own, Oracle like procedure, PL/SQL procedures. So we have, provide a compatibility for the Oracle as well in the database engine. As I said earlier, what you need is most of your actual database user or the application. So if you want to use, if you want to integrate different application to the database, you need different driver. So this is like the JDBC driver is already there in the PostgreSQL. In Postgres community there. It's not part of the core PostgreSQL, but there is pSQL driver. What we did is we enhanced this to and added more features for security feature as well as Oracle compatibility feature that the JDBC should support all the data types which Oracle has. It support all the Oracle queries which Oracle has, and it should communicate with our AgeDB enterprise database. Similarly, there is a database. Another connector is for ODBC for which implement the open database connectivity, and you can use on the Windows. You can, or of course, you can use on the Linux too. But on the Windows, you can create your DSN and access your database using the DSN in Microsoft any Office application to fetch the data. Similarly, we have the driver, which is enhanced driver with more support for Oracle compatibility and some security features, which is for the .NET. And we created another one from scratch, another driver to fully support the OCI, which is Oracle Client Interface. So what we did is we created a new driver, so all applications who are using existing Oracle driver, they can just seamlessly move to PostgreSQL with minimal changes. So this covers the application part and the database part. So what missing is in between, whether your whole solution is highly available or not. So high availability is quite, important for enterprises and the databases. With this solution, AHM, Agents Manager, we do provide multiple components to provide this functionality, which is, we use normally PG pool, and of course, we also enhance PG pool to properly load balance Oracle queries and other queries. Even for the AGE tool, like if you see in the Cypher, there would be queries. Few of them would be read queries and few would be the write queries. So what it can do is, it can split and load balance your Cypher queries too. And of course, it can manage the failover management as well. And if you see the solution as a whole, you want to see it and want to control and monitor this whole solution. And for that, there is Agents Enterprise Manager, where you can, if you set up all your component databases, extensions, different high availability manager, and for different products, for the backups, you have different products. So all of them you can manage through one interface, which is AEM. Which is an enhanced form of, again, it is an enhanced form for the PG admin. And the last thing is when we say a solution, so if you see in PG community, there are so many products, okay? There are so many open source tools which supports PostgreSQL. What they lack is, they are in different chunks. One company provide or one user person provide different these projects, open source projects. But how to integrate them into one working solution? So with that, we also provide the packages. Okay, we call them native packages. On the Windows, there would be Windows installer. On the different Linux distribution, there could be RPMs and the Debians, Debs. And what it provided, it would provide a seamless integration. You install the database at one specific location, you install the AGE extension, it will exactly install where it need to be installed, which is like, let's say in the lib folder, it will deploy the SO file. On the window, it will provide the DLL file, where to provide the SQL file. Similarly, for example, if you're using PG pool or any failover manager, you should have a pre-configured different parameters so that it can work. Just install the package or any product, and just you will start using it without modifying much of the configuration. So this is the sort of conclusion as well, that when you have the different component and you have the database, but when you actually want to work in a big enterprise or even in your production environment, you need a full solution. So what AgeDB Enterprise provide is a complete solution from start to end, which cover everything as a functionality wise, as a environment wise, and in different scenarios you could have. So with that, I will hand over to the next presenter.
Thank you very much, Umar. Yeah, so it was very nice and interesting to see how the combination of the two technologies are capable for enterprises. Now I'd like to open up the floor for questions. So please feel free to send in questions if you have any over the chat. And in the meantime, let me go ahead and introduce some of the interesting questions I've received so far. So the first one, this may be for Eya. So Eya, so what versions of PostgreSQL are supported by Apache AGE so far? And what are the future plans or roadmap for Apache AGE?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. I think John, one of our core developers, our lead developer, answered that in the chat box. But for all, Apache AGE supports Postgres 15, 14, 13, 12, and 11. Our 14 and 15 should be out very soon, but you can start using the previous versions. I think it's in our website. You can download it from there or get it from our repository. And as I mentioned, 14 should be out very soon, in a couple of days, I think, or maybe tomorrow. And 15 is in the process. It's in the voting process. Everything is done, and we're just waiting for the last release. As of the roadmap, I think one of our priorities when it comes to our roadmap is OpenCipher graph language. Label update, label redesign, list comprehension, a subquery in the case statement, and more. We do have we did have a discussion regarding some data analytic graph algorithms, in-memory algorithms, and so on. We will share the roadmap soon with the community, so everyone can look at that roadmap. Did I answer all the questions?
I actually got a few more questions for you again, Eya. So the next one we have is, what is the best way for someone to get started with Apache AGE? And are there any recommended resources or tutorials?
Yeah, of course. I will put the AGE's website in the chat box. So I think it's a good good reference to kind of get started with AGE. You can download the latest version of AGE from our website. You can also visit our repository. It's very active, so there are lots of discussion is going on over there as well. We do have mailing list for Apache AGE. I will share all of those through the chat box. I think I only shared it with the panelists. But I think go to our website. We do have tutorials. We do have videos on the installation and how to get started with AGE, with instructions, with the documentation. So I think that's a good first step to take. And as I mentioned, we do have mailing list. You can always reach out to us if you need any help or if you have any questions. So we have a very active community. Everyone's is there active to support the users. So
Great. Thank you very much, Eya. Actually, got one more question for you, Eya, for you. Also, how can developers contribute to Apache AGE? Is there a specific process or guideline to follow?
Yes, the guideline is also on our website. So anyone is actually very welcome to contribute to this project. Any type of contributions are welcome. You can contribute in any parts. You can contribute to documentation, to the code. You can contribute to anywhere that you think you can be beneficial to this community and to this project. So again, all the instructions on how you can help us and you can contribute is on the website. I think go there, get a little bit familiar. You also need to learn a little bit more about Apache Foundation, but if you need help to get started, you can also reach out to us. We can guide you on, where to start and how to contribute.
Great. Thank you so much, Eya. And our next question may be actually for both Ibra and Eya. So the question is, what real-world use cases or industries can benefit the most, do you think, from this combination?
Would you like me to go or want to take?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll add mine. If you have any comments, you can add yours as well. I think we touched base it a little bit, but when it comes to multi-model, for example, I mean, if it's graph, obviously there are some specific efficient, good use cases for graph. Will be recommendation system, fraud detection, or other use cases for graph. But again, having this capability, having graph on top of Postgres is, I think one of the great use cases is when you're having a multi-model system, right? So when you have some relational data and graph data, having this hybrid query feature, I think it's very beneficial, and it's one of the, I would say, bold and great use cases in this case. I would let Ibra add some comments on it as well.
Yeah, actually, the use cases when you are talking about, it's not about the storing the data, the node and edges. The use cases when you are talking about the querying, like I can give you the example, like if you have a huge data where relations are not one-to-one or one-to-many, when you have a many-to-many and a big relation concept, like if you have the words that every 5 person in the world are connected to each other. That's called, if you note that every 5%, fifth person is your friend. So if you have that kind of data and you want to query that data, and I think in that case, the relational database failed. So you have some kind of a graph to query and normalize your system to get your response really quickly. And that's the idea. It's not about the storing, how we store, but the query processing of the graph is really fast in terms of when you have many relations in between the nodes. So that's the beauty. In relation database, you have a one-to-one, one-to-many, that's okay. Small relationship, small database, but you have a huge global data. So that kind of your use case for that. So it's a technical term, but if you are talking about the business, that many other aspects of that, people are using the Neo4j and other database for that. And the drawback of the Neo4j, you can only store your graph database, and in Age you can store the both in the same way. So this is all my 2 cents.
Great. Thank you, Eya and Ibra. I got a couple more questions for Ibra. I'm going to go them in order. So, Ibra, how does the integration of AGE with PostgreSQL benefit developers and organizations?
Yeah. So, I already typed my answer some kind of that, but I will elaborate the answer here. When you have PostgreSQL and you change the PostgreSQL, and that's people are doing this kind of stuff. They use the PostgreSQL and enhance that PostgreSQL, and they are selling the PostgreSQL or selling the support for that. But we are not doing this kind of a thing here, because there are 2 drawbacks of doing this. The first one is you have to install a specified fork of PostgreSQL from a specific company like Enterprise DB and many other companies are there. So in this case, you can just download the vanilla PostgreSQL from PostgreSQL site and use the extension over that. That's the beauty. That's the one thing. And second thing is that you don't need to initialize your database. You don't need to port your database. You have an existing data of SQL data, no problem. Just install the extension and start using that. If you change the PostgreSQL in the core and use the fork of PostgreSQL, that's a problem. Then you have to port your old data into the new database, and it can cause the problem of the compatibility issues, some other issues, and downtime and everything. So that's why PostgreSQL provide the way of extension, and we are using the PostgreSQL extension. And somebody I can answer that. What is the business model of the open source? Somebody asked in the chat, and I answered that. That is the detailed discussion about that, how open source business model works. There are actually 2 model of open source business model. And one model is if you have everything open, so you are not selling the product, you are selling the support, and 60 to 70% of the PostgreSQL community is doing that. They are providing the open source software or PostgreSQL, and they are selling the support for that, and people are getting support. That's the one business model. And the second business model, the 40%, 30% of PostgreSQL and open source is doing, they use the PostgreSQL and provide the more feature in PostgreSQL, and their code is usually closed source. That portion of the code is closed source. Like Enterprise DB, one of the biggest PostgreSQL company, they provide the Oracle compatibility, but they took the PostgreSQL and closed source it, and they are selling that too. So there are, and third one, there is another one that's called a developer edition and the enterprise edition. So you have a developer edition where you can use that, you can work on that, but it lacks some feature. Like Umar already explained that we have an enterprise, we have some more feature on that. So like profiler or something like that, more feature on that. So you are selling that, but you also provide the developer edition. So that's a technique used in the business. Like you will provide the free one, a developer edition, people will start using that. And when they feel they require some more feature, or they said, oh, why this feature is not here? Then they start thinking to put money into the business and buy an enterprise edition. So that's my answer.
Great, thank you, Ibra. I've got one more question left for you. The question is, has the PostgreSQL graph combination been particularly successful in any specific market or industry?
Yes, actually, I already explained that nowadays things are changing. Usually in the previous, people were thinking that like the relation database is enough for them. Okay, they were using the relation database. Then the time comes that the data is becoming huge. So they start thinking about the big data, the Apache, Hadoop, and they are talking about that. Nowadays, people are thinking to have a one solution for their things like the graph, go to the Neo4j. You need a relational database, go for PostgreSQL or MySQL. But what happened when your data is not in a particular way that you can store that in a relation? You need some tables, you need something which need to be stored data, you need to be stored in a graph way, and some data you need to be stored that in a relational database model. So that's the use case when you have the both kind of a data. So you can say use that the AgeSQL is the best use case for that.
Thank you for the explanation, Ibra. Here I'm receiving also a few questions for Umar as well. So Umar, so the first question that's up for you is, how is AgensSQL different from already existing solutions in the market? And what innovations does it offer as compared to its competitors?
Yeah, so a bit of it I already explained in my portion, that we added a lot of enterprise level feature. Okay, maybe if you're one client sitting on your desktop and using just the database in isolation, with just maybe along with that you want to run some graph queries as well, that's fine. But when it's come to the enterprise, the company, or maybe even a small company, SMC or big enterprises, you need a front to end, start to end, a full-fledged solution which provide everything, not only in the database, also along the database, all the tooling. On the database specific, if you ask, we added different security feature I mentioned, and that's the more thing we provide. And also we also provided Oracle compatibility. Now it's quite saying where we provide the Oracle compatibility is quite simple, but it's quite a big thing. Okay, you have to change the whole core database engine. You have to provide, as Ibrahim mentioned, you have to change the parser, rewriter, you have to implement, the storage mechanism for different kind of features. You have to provide application support. Everywhere you have to modify every single thing to do that. Not only the database, you have to modify all the tools to support all those things. Even the middleware tools like pgpool, failover managers, to the client side tools. So that's what we did, is we added more feature on top of the PostgreSQL to be enterprise friendly solution.
Great. Thank you very much, Umar. So let's make this question the last one. So the question, I'm going to read it to you. It says, I'm using PostgreSQL at my company already. And given that both PostgreSQL and Apache AGE are open source, why in particular should you implement AgeDB?
The same kind of answer which I already explained. I mean, if you want to use more feature, okay, and like one thing I mentioned is like seamless integration. You go to any platform, any Linux distro or Windows, whatever you install, you don't need to compile AGE. You just download the package, or maybe you don't need to download the package. Just add the repository, run one command, and it would be there for you. You don't need to set up the whole thing. Similarly, not only for only the graph extension, it's true for all the products we provide, that you just need one single command and everything is set up for you. So that's the seamless integration of all the product in one package. Of course, when we say one package, it doesn't mean you have to download everything at once. We provide everything, but you can pick and choose whatever you want.
Great. Thank you so much, Umar, for your insights. It was great to hear. And yeah, thank you all for your questions. If you have any more questions, please share them through contact@agedb.io, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Or please visit our website at agedb.io and make use of the contact page or the contact form that we have on our website. Also, there is going to be a survey right after this webinar that you will see in the browser. So if you could please fill that up, it'd be very appreciated, everyone. Great. So yeah, that's what we have for today for our webinar. So thank you so much, Eya, Ibra, and Umar, And thanks everyone for joining today, and we hope to see you again on our next webinar.